Boom. Okay, so... Alright. Welcome to the live stream, everybody. This is the 70 Wonders of China, and tonight we are starting on the Ming tombs. Let's start with the quote at the top of the page. So, top of the page, the quote says, "The Ming tombs in Qingping undoubtedly form one of the largest and most gorgeous royal cemeteries ever laid out by the hand of man. They yield the palm of the Egyptian pyramids in point bulk, but certainly not in the style and grandeur." Jean Jacob Marie de Groot, 1894. The tombs of 13 of the 16 emperors of the Ming dynasty lie in sheltered valley 45 kilometers northwest of Beijing. These are the earliest Chinese imperial mausolea, with surviving surface buildings, and as such, they provide a unique illustration of traditional Chinese beliefs and the dead. The imperial system was based on the idea that the emperor was the son of heaven. As the link between heaven and earth, it was his duty to create or maintain and prosperity. In the Ming tombs, we can see how clearly imperial complexes, the belief that human society could only flourish when it was in harmony with the greatest forces of the cosmos. Everything from the choice of the site to the smallest decorative motif was designed to provide contract between the deceased emperors and the spirit world. The first Ming emperor was buried under his capital, Nanjing. The second disappeared in a war of succession, and the third, Yugal, after moving his capital north to Beijing, which chose a new dynasty burial ground. The valley conforms the Chinese ideas about geomancy or feng shui. The shape of the valley enhances the unity of ... So these are the Ming tombs that we're looking at, Chinese brother. I am also pleased to welcome 622, welcome Muna, welcome Happy Lotus, and Della370 to the live stream. I'm glad you could join us at 11:05 a.m. China time. And let's just turn the page to the next tomb. Oh, that wasn't it. So, just going to move forward here, and is that it? Nope. Wait. Alright, so it... Stupid pictures. Anyway, welcome back, Muni, to the live stream. And let us begin reading. The empire and tombs are protected from the cold northern winds by mountains whilst being open to warm south. The approach to the tombs is heralded by a large memorial archway. From there the way leads to a stone stele, 10 meters tall, on a tortoise base. The dedication to Changling Yonggul's own tomb, and the first in the valley with its references to the virtues of the great dynasty of Ming underlings. The permanence of the dynasty's interperspective of emperors who may have come and go. Beyond this, the Spirit Road, an avenue of stone figures, leads northward to Changling. Later tombs set in hillsides to the east and west of the first tomb. are reached by small ways leading from the central avenue like branches on a tree. Welcome back, Chinese brother, to the live stream. Glad you can make it tonight. Since the Han Dynasty, spirit roads have played an important part in the Chinese burial system. Each dynasty redesigned the avenue to show the nature of their rule and, where necessary, to seek help from the unseen powers. Welcome back, Mimis. I'm glad you could make it back with us tonight. The Ming succeeded the Mongol Yuan. ... Actually, the picture was taken sideways, so I'm going to just... Nope, that's not it. Signal instability, that's... Let me see. Alright, I'm not sure what's going on with the signal instability, but I wish I could know. Let me just go to the camera. So, it took sideways pictures of the text for some reason when I was taking pictures earlier. So, I'm just going to put these up right about here. Oh, shoot. Really? Good job, Palfish. Alright, so I'm back. The signal must be affecting the way I'm using Palfish right now. But I do have a picture for us for the next text. And Dynasty were determined to re-establish links with China's great past, as if the alien occupation had never taken place. Their imperial spirit road expresses the idea of a large, unified, peaceful, and well-run empire, with its roots in China's ancient history. After a pair of stone beacons, the sanctuary consists of 2 pairs, each of 6 animals, 3 real and 3 fabulous, shown first sitting to the rest of the night and then standing. The fabulous beasts illustrate the nature of the new dynasty. Lions for military, security, and 2 mythological creatures symbolizing wise, peaceful government and justice. So, Mimi's, apparently I had to reload the app real quick because that's what was keeping the connection down. But I'm glad the connection's a little better. So, the real animals denote the extent of the empire, with elephants for the south, horses for the west, and camels for the north. Beyond the animals, 6 pairs of standing officials represent ideal military commanders and imperial advisors, identified by the detailed carving of their clothing. Together, the statues informed not only human visitors to the tombs, but also those in the unseen world about the nature and power of the Ming Empire, and its clear difference from the warlike Mongol rule. The spiritual role of the tombs was underlined by a complete change in decorative motifs. Statuary on the tombs of earlier dynasties included stone reliefs of real subjects, birds, animals, and plants. But in the Ming Valley, all relief carvings portray fabulous creatures in their believed habitat of sea, mountains, and clouds. I'm going to move on to the next section here. The tomb plans are based on an ancient saying, "Heaven round, earth square." For the first time, this was expressed architecturally with a clear division between the square, or rectangular, for part of the tomb with its great halls, where the rites were performed, and round or oval mound, covering the underground burial chamber. The worldly sections are replicas of contemptuous palace architecture. The halls are built in traditional manner, with red wooden weight-bearing pillars, and brightly colored walls, and tiles set in walled courtyards. The large hall, the Hall of Heavenly Favors, in Changling, is an exact replica of the largest hall in the Forbidden City, the Hall of the Supreme Harmony. Let's go to the next little section up here. It's probably just going to be quicker if I hold it this way. Nope, this is actually worse. That's why I have the picture. Or imperial peace. Until the early 20th century, these were the two largest buildings in China. Behind this, in the last courtyard, is a stone altar with 5 stone replicas of ritual objects used in sacrificial rites. This altar, never used, was a reminder that in the distant Chinese past, sacrifices were held in the open. Turn to the next page. If anyone has any questions or comments about any of the wonders of China, feel free to post them in the comments section. Shoot, this took sideways pictures. Won't do. Just won't do. Welcome, Sue1105. I'm glad you could join us tonight. We are on the 37th Wonder of China, which is 37th Wonder of China, which is the Ming Tombs. And I'm taking a picture of the next page because when this camera took a picture, it used a sideways photograph. Let's see. Let's go get... Quality is going to be a little bit shabby under the light, but you will have it shortly. The way from which the square earthly to the heavenly round part of the tomb lies through a tall pavilion containing the stele dedicated to a deceased emperor. Entering the tomb section is like coming into another world. Gone are all the colors. Here everything is of unadorned stone. The tree-covered mound is enclosed by stone ramparts with a view of the mountains. Only excavated tomb, Dingling, tomb of the Emperor Wali, consists of a series of vaulted chambers leading to the roof where the coffin lay. The doors and walls are made of white marble, with slabs fitting so tightly that the interior was completely dry after 250 years. The contents of the tomb, now mostly on display in the Forbidden City Museum, include valuable clothing and headdress of the emperor and his 2 empresses, numerous jade objects, models of furniture, fine porcelain, and a very large collection of Ming textiles. Alright, that's the end of the Ming tombs. But before we go, let's look at some of the artifacts, such as the marble thrones right here, with a small bit of pottery. On the page previous, you see here a military official in the Spirit Road leading to Changling. And on the page prior is the Dingling tomb of Emperor Wali. Prior to that, welcome to the live stream. Glad you could join us tonight. Right here is the stone sculptures along the Spirit Road leading to the 16th century tomb of the Ming Emperor Jiajing's parents, Zhongxia, Hebei province. Yeah, no, I'll do that in the future, but still, shoot. Camera took all sideways pictures earlier. So just wait 2 seconds. While this camera takes its time and toll. So let's read further. In the southwestern province of Sichuan, not far from the Buddhist holy mountain Emisha, dedicated to the worship of the Bodhisattva Sambhadra, a giant Buddha figure is carved into the reddish, tree-covered cliff at Lisha. The site is dramatic for 3 rivers, the Dadu, Jingying, and Ming, cover at Lisha. The giant Buddha sits against a cliff on the bank of the Ming River. Carved during the Tang Dynasty between 713 and 803, the figure is that of Maitreya, the Buddha of the future, rather than the historic Buddha Sakyamuni. Welcome WHJ, and I welcome you both to the live stream. I hope you enjoy our times in the Leshan Great Buddha and surrounding caves. Shakyamuni is often depicted as either standing or sitting cross-legged on a lotus throne, whilst Maitreya is usually shown as here, seated as if on a chair, with feet on the ground. Alright. Smaller Maitreya figures show the hands on the preaching mudra, or gesture, held up in front of the chest. But the size of the figure and weight of the Lesha Buddha mean that its hands rest firmly on its knees. The Lesha Great Buddha was clearly modeled on earlier giant Buddhist carvings seen by Chinese pilgrims to South Asia. Faxian, a monk who traveled to India in the early 5th century, wrote an account of his visit into the 3rd century giant figures of standing Buddhas as Brahmya. Welcome Sniper Supremacy and welcome Norman Wong. Glad you both could join us tonight in the Leshan Great Buddha and caves of western China. Also, welcome Chris F. The larger of the two Bungya Buddhas was 53 meters. I have eaten dinner. I already have eaten dinner. I had a meat and cheese taco earlier. So, that's basically what I had for dinner. Cut deep into the cliff face, the larger of the two Bungya Buddhas was 53 meters high and not standing but seated. So it well be true, as the Chinese claim, that the Lesha Buddha is the largest stone-carved Buddha in the world. It has been recently designated a World Heritage Site, which should help preserve it from the fate of the Bungya Buddhas that were blown up by ... Welcome to the live stream, Rose. I'm glad you could join us tonight. We are in Western China for the 38th wonder in the Lesha Buddha and the surrounding caves. So a lot of the pictures, when I was initially taking them for this section, took sideways photographs rather than normal phone photographs, because my phone must have been tilted just barely. But anyway, we can move forward in the reading. I'm glad you could join us tonight, Rose, and I hope you have a good time reading with us. Officers of the Taliban Ministry for the Prevention of Vice and the Promotion of Virtue in March 2001. The Lesha Buddha is impressive rather than beautiful, with a head nearly 15 meters high, covered in tightly carved curls of hair, and 7 meters earlobes, for all Buddha figures have long earlobes dragging down by earrings. Above and behind the Buddha, on the top of the cliff, are temple buildings and a pagoda. These are much later in date than the Buddha and have been frequently restored. The Lingbao Pagoda, built in brick, was first constructed during the Song dynasty and restored in the Ming and Qing. Local legend holds that the site was chosen at the confluence of rivers in an effort to prevent flooding, and that funds were raised for the Buddha's construction by a local monk who gouged out one of his own eyes to impress potential donors. A series of narrow steps with the 9 turns is carved in the rock on the right side of the Buddha, leading down to the feet at the riverside, each one said to be large enough to accommodate 100 people. On both sides of the cliff, besides the Buddha's knees and ankles, smaller niches containing multiple Buddha figures have been carved over the centuries. Visible only from the river or the opposite bank are the 2 standing guardian figures carved into the cliff on either side of the Buddha. Such attendant guardians are commonly seen at other great rock-carved Buddha sites in China, like the Longmen Caves near Laoyang. Some 20 meters tall, they are more delicately modeled than the Buddha. A little further east of the giant Buddha are a number of tombs built in natural caves in the cliff. One dates from 159 AD and has a roughly carved Buddha figure in the raudal on the lintel. This is a particularly significant carving, probably the earliest Buddha image in China, for it dates from the very first years of the introduction of Buddhism from India, and it is surprising to find it in Sichuan, so far from the Silk Road or capital city. Welcome, Gabby, to the live stream. I'm glad you could join us tonight. We are looking at the giant Buddha statue. And here in this picture is a view of the Longmen Caves near Laoyang. On the next page over, we've got a fabulous picture of the Great Buddha, the Leshan Great Buddha in Western China. And with that, Right, so these are crooked too, apparently. 1 second, everybody. Going to put up the reading. Welcome 235 to the live stream. I'm glad you could join us tonight. It looks like the camera's a little slow. The app's a little bit slow, but we will go through to the reading. Our next section is the Lanbrang Yellow Hat Monastery in Western China. If you guys have any stories about said monastery, go ahead and post them in the comments below. Otherwise, we will keep reading forward. Welcome, Triple C. I love the lucky clover in your name. Looks awesome. In 1703, Zheng Yang Shepa received a whole set of Buddhist scriptures from the Mongol prince Ardezhong. The latter asked him to return home to propagate Buddhism. To this he replied, "Suppose I go back home, could you help me in the building as good a monastery as Dre Pung?" "It would be somewhat difficult to build one like this," the prince replied, "but I shall try my best to fulfill your wish." Adopted from Li Ang Chi, History of Tibetan Religion. Welcome back, 235. Glad you could stick with us tonight. The 300-year-old Labrang Monastery is one of the largest monasteries of the Yellow Hat School of Tibetan Buddhism. The monastery and town of Labrang, Sichuan Country, Guangxu Province, straddled a trade route running along the narrow but level floor of the valley of the Daxia River. Between steep hills on either side, the river flows from the bleak Tibetan plateau to the west in a zone of formerly forested hills and cultivated valleys, the site of Labrang being at the junction of nomadic and settled areas. To the west, the hinterland of Labrang is occupied largely by Tibetan nomads who share a ... 1 second, guys. If you have any comments or stories on the Yellow Hat Monastery, go ahead and post them in the comments below. The video quality is going to be as good as it will be for this video. So I'm going to take a couple quick pictures. And welcome 829 to the live stream. Glad you could join us tonight. We are at a small pause. For my camera took most of these pictures sideways beforehand. But that just means that for the live stream, you guys will get a better text. My streaming speed is a little slow. Common language and religious culture with the settled Tibetans in the immediate vicinity and to the east, though following a very different lifestyle. Also in nomadic areas live the descendants of the Mongol tribes, who were politically dominant at the time of the monastery's foundation, many of them now Tibetanized in varying degrees. Some 40 kilometers to the east and north, Tibetan culture gives way to Han Chinese and Muslims. Labrang, despite its firm affiliation to the Yellow Hat or Gelugpa school of Tibetan Buddhism, has since its foundation been a focus of complex religious, cultural, economic, and political relations between these and other groups, as well as Manchu nationalist and communist governments. Economically, the monastery has depended on the revenues from taxes, lands, and trade diverged from the local population. Go on to the next section. Alright. At the time of Labrang's foundation, in 1709, the region was controlled by Yildirim Jingong, grandson of the Kushat Mongol, whose installation of the fifth Dalai Lama in 1642 had led to the building of the Potala Palace in Lhasa. The religious initiatives came from the first Jamyang Shepa, a native of the area and an incarnation, third in rank after the Dalai and Panchen Lamas. The local Mongol aristocracy continued to play a leading political role in this rather turbulent frontier area down to the mid-20th century, and were the main sponsors of the development of the monastery. Not until 1950 did China, in the form of the communist government, take firm control of the region. After a period of neglect until after the Cultural Revolution, monastic life had been re-established. By the early 20th century, monastery occupied an area about 1 kilometer in length and 500 meters wide along the north bank of the river, with all the main buildings facing south. The outer buildings present continuous perimeter wall to the outside. Concentric circulation paths thread through and around the complex. Two roads traverse the monastery from east to west. This general layout is typical of Gelongpa monasteries through the Tibetan culture. Rural area. Nope, that's not it. No. Welcome way on to the live stream. I'm glad you could join us tonight. And we are on the Yellow Hat Monastery. Let's wait 2 minutes and there it is. Area. Like most large Tibetan monasteries, it is the product of a long period of growth. First to be built was the Assembly Hall in 1709 to 1711, replacing a tent with a community of just 5 monks. The first Jamyang. No, I am not smoking. I just have a little bit of a lisp here and there. The first Jamyang Shepa also founded the Gongme Trasang, the Sokshin Kora Temple. Many other buildings were added during the 18th century, including the Shirka Kangmo, or Great Golden Temple, and the Dukor Transang. Others followed the 19th century and 20th centuries. These buildings, their functions and contents, reflect the collective organization. The academic programs, including dialects, debate, astrology, and medicine, and the ritual and iconographic preoccupations of the giant Yellow Hat Monastery near Lashai, particularly Ganding and Derpong. By the 20th century, there were 6 sutra halls, 48 Buddha temples, 31 palaces for the Jamyang Shepas, and the senior lamas, 30 mansions for the incarnate lamas, 8 government buildings, 6 big kitchens, 1 printing house, 2 main meeting halls, over 500 prayer wheel rooms, and more than 500 common monk cells. Alright, go on to the next section here. Welcome Zoe399. I'm glad you could join us for tonight's live stream. We are on the Yellow Hat Monastery, the 39th wonder of China. The architectural style of the buildings has been aptly described as an example of the Tibetanization of Amando architecture. While in many Amando monasteries, Chinese building materials, plans, and aesthetics are prominent, a bit mixed with local features, the overall plan of Labrang is inspired by the Drepung, the central Tibet. The temples are in the center Tibetan Gelongpa style, and the monks' houses are in the local flat-roofed style with a central light well. The main building materials are stamped earth and stone, with inward sloping outer walls. Internal, the standard pane Tibetan wooden columns and elongated bracket capitals. The Gelongpa style, in turn, itself incorporates a few Chinese elements, principally small pitched roofs. Welcome Stone AOA and welcome Peter Yang to the live stream. I'm glad you could join us tonight. We are exploring the Yellow Hat Monastery in the province of Tibet. I hope you guys enjoy the reading. Let's see. On the flat roof terraces of important temples, the rough exterior surfaces are painted white, and in the case of temples, red, with the typical brushwood parapets at terrace level. The architectural and religious core of the monastery is still the assembly hall. Welcome Young Vig to the live stream. Welcome No Farm to the live stream. I'm glad you both could join us for tonight at the Yellow Hat Monastery. Monastery is still the assembly hall. Completed in 1711, enlarged in 1772, accidentally burnt down in 1985, and rebuilt to the same design in 1990, it is entered through the Tomsangling College, which consists of an extra hall roofed with green glazed Chinese tiles, leading into a large clustered courtyard. The assembly hall itself is a clear space accommodating up to 4,000 seated monks, whose flat roof is supported by 140 columns. To the rear is a two-storied temple building with 3 chapels on the ground floor. Its upper story looks onto the clustered roof terrace. And bears a small Chinese roof. Thus, in general terms, the design follows that of many important central Tibetan temples, such as the Jukha in Lhasa and Shalu near Singase, with entrance, courtyard, assembly hall, and temple to the rear. Alright. Thank you, Zode399. I can definitely give you the text after the live stream if you ask for it in the messages afterward. And welcome to the live stream, Dashmark. I'm glad you could join us tonight. There were between 3,000 and 5,000 monks in residence until the communist takeover. And these are now about 2,000 monks, mostly recruited from the surrounding regions of Amando. Labrang is once again a bustling center for pilgrims, traders, and now tourists, as well as being a fully functional Tibetan monastery. So, before we move on to the next section, which is the Great Monuments of Tibet, the video quality is a little low. We can look at said pictures in this section. Right here is the Labrang Monastery, as looking from it, the western direction. Down here is, let's just wait here a second. Down here is an old man at the monastery making use of prayer wheels. And just over this direction, this phone must be overheated or something. Just over here is a Tibetan pilgrim that basically is in prayer at the floor of the grounds of Labrang Monastery in the background. Indeed. And just over here It's going to take 2 seconds. The phone's a little bit warm. This picture right here is the ancient map of the Labrang Monastery complex in Gangsu Province. Alright. So, definitely text me afterward for the I can't understand what you're saying, Chinese brother. But we are moving forward to our next section, the Great Monuments of Tibet. So 1 second while we reload some pictures. That was actually a monastery in the province of Tibet. Right now I'm just putting up a couple pieces of text. And our phone is just being a little wonky right now. We will get through this though. Okay. I'm still here, Zoe. I'm going to put up our next little reading. My phone's a little bit warm, so it's taking an extra second to move forward. And the pictures that I did take were actually... So I'm doing good, Zoe. How are you doing today? We're going to read from the top of the page. There's a little quote. You guys can read ahead. The roadway was but a gully, and we had to dismount and pass through in single file. But once through, what a sight lay before our eyes. Immediately to our left, we were face to face with the gigantic structure of the Patula Palace, which covered the whole of the hill. I halted, almost dumbfounded before its splendor. W. Montgomery, McGovern, 1924. Welcome to the live stream. I'm glad you could join us tonight. We are on the 40th Wonder of China, the Great Monuments of Tibet. The Paktula Palace was conceived as a symbol of the Tibetan polity at a time where the country was newly united under the rule of the Buddhist Dalai Lamas. Welcome 123888. I'm glad you could join us tonight for the beginning of the Great Monuments of Tibet. It has admirably fulfilled that function, its image having been displayed by diverse groups in their claims of control over an affiliation with Tibet, while it also provides the quintessential visual symbol of Tibet for outsiders. At the same time, it evokes the Indian roots of Tibetan Buddhism, the practical Mongol backing which made its construction possible, and Chinese modes of architectural embellishment. Named after the mythical South Indian palace of Tibet's patron Buddhist deity Avalokiteshvara, the Potala is built on the alleged site of the small palace erected by the 7th century AD founder of Tibet, King Songtsen Gampo, who was like the instigator of the Potala. The 5th Dalai Lama is reckoned as a reincarnation of Avala konting Shavara. The Potala runs along the crest of low ridge overlooking the town of La Cha to the south and is part of the fortified complex, which includes a rectangular walled precinct at the ridge's foot. Its core comprises two main elements, the White Palace to the east and the Red Palace to the west. After being installed as the ruler of Tibet by the Mongol Khusru Khan in 1642, the fifth Dalai Lama constructed the White Palace between 1645 and 1648 and made it his official residence. His last regent, Shengye Gongshu, built the Red Palace. Welcome, Al Baba, to the live stream. I'm glad you could join us tonight. We are focusing on the great monuments of Tibet. It's just taking 2 seconds to load, and here we are. If anyone has any stories about the great monuments of Tibet, you can go ahead and post them in the comments below. As of right now, this will be our last page. Between 1690 and 1694, to incorporate the Dalai Lama's mausoleum, both the White and Red Palaces are ultimately a development of ancient Indian mosaic design. The rectangular ground floor assembly hall is surrounded by an inward-looking cells over which the superimposed 2 or more stories of further cells to leave a galleried and open central inner terrace over the hall. The internal spaces are mostly dedicated as chapels, monastic rooms, Dalai Lama's living quarters, or their funeral shrines. The tomb of the 13th Dalai Lama is housed in a western extension to the Red Palace, built between 1934 and 1936. Peripheral buildings, such as the monastic living quarters at the western end, storerooms, and other fortifications, seem mostly to go back to the late 17th century, though many minor modifications have been made over the years. Access is by narrow defensible gateways reached by a number of steps, ramparts whose gentle gradient is easily gateable by a loaded horse. Welcome back, Zo399, and welcome Shalalala to the live stream. This is our last paragraph at the bottom right and our last page for tonight. The crest of the hill seems to have been leveled into a terrace by cut and fill, a standard Tibetan technique. The outer walls of the buildings descended below the terrace to various levels, giving the impression of growing out of the ridge. So, we're within the last 4 minutes of the live stream, and what we have here is probably the most famous monument in Tibet, the Putula Palace, and it marks the main western entrance to a road to the surrounding city, and it's basically a structure built in the 18th century and has had consistent maintenance over the centuries under Chinese influence and rule. Welcome to the live stream, Cross, and welcome to the live stream, everyone else. I'm glad you could join us for the last few minutes. So, I myself know a little bit about Tibet's history, but won't describe it here. What I'll ask from you guys is if any of you have been to Tibet, the province of Tibet in China before, and if so, you can comment your experience in the comments section. Welcome Nick Liu to the last 2 minutes of the live stream. We are in the middle of the Great Monuments of Tibet. We are also halfway through this section on the Great Monuments of Tibet, as we don't have enough time to finish it. Our next wonder for tomorrow is the Grand Canal, which stretches between the Yangtze and Yellow Rivers, and used to connect a lot of boat travel between the two areas. So, that's fine. Welcome A. Bo to the live stream. I'm glad you could join us tonight. I'm just going to flip the phone up here so it's easier to read the comments. If any of you want a copy of the text that we read tonight, go ahead and say it in the chat chat after said live stream, and I will definitely remember to get you the text from tonight's live stream. Welcome Onya King to the last minute of our live stream. As I said, if you want a copy of the text from the 70 Wonders of China, make sure to send me a chat in my comments after said live stream, so that I can send you a copy of this reading. And Ling Ling 611, I welcome you to the last minute of our live stream. I have another live stream of this in 12 hours, and I'm doing a second live stream later tonight, so be tuned in for that. And I hope you all have a good noon and lunch, and have a great day. This phone's warm. And with that, we're going to end this live stream, and